Hello everybody and welcome to today's episode of Rapid Fire Question Time with the UK's most trusted pump experts. Today we have Tim, our head designer, with us, and there's a key question that we're going to be answering. So, in this scenario, I am a contractor and I've been asked by a consulting engineer whether I'm looking for a 240 volt or a 400 volt pumping station system. How do I know I'm making the right choice?
So whether we go for a 240 volt or a 400 volt pumping station greatly depends on the site, the specific site. Whilst 400 volts systems are by far the most common for a number of reasons, 240 volt is also a viable option on a lot of sites. So with a 240 volt system, they are limited in the range of pumping power that you can achieve, but on a lot of sites this is more than sufficient. So a pump between 2 to 3 kilowatts is really the maximum you're going to get out of a 240 volt system. It also requires capacitors, which can be prohibitive on some systems, and it can lead to greater problems further down the line. With 400 volt systems on the pumps, typically have a higher torque and are better suited more for industrial applications and for pumping stations where you're pumping a good reasonable distance or a lot of water, a higher flow rate typically.
So the main difference between the two, what I'm hearing is essentially the torque of the pump. You mentioned about 2 to 3 kilowatts, so you've got 240 volt. If you need to go above that 2 to 3 kilowatts, you then need to go to 400 volt. But in some scenarios where you're using 400 volt is required because you're trying to push a massive volume, hence the torque. I mean, why would I need more torque on a pump? Is it just purely the volume side of things?
So more torque on a pump is great if you've got for sewage pumping stations. It can reduce the risk of or minimise the risk of blockages. So with a 240 volt system, you can have a problem with a blockage where it can then destroy capacitors or cause further problems within the control circuitry. So for sites where you're looking at the potential higher problems with blockages, especially on sewage systems, then yes, 400 volt is definitely a better way to go. And as we said, the 2 to 3 kilowatt is the limit for 230 volt systems.
Okay, and Tom, in terms of prohibitive, you mentioned again prohibitive. So is that cost prohibitive? Because I know obviously when you've got a small development and you're trying to get, say, 400 volt power into a small development, it can be very expensive. Is that something to bear in mind? So is it something you factor in at the beginning of the project? You go, okay, we're going to need 400 volt, therefore we've got to buy the cost if you can't get away with 240 volt.
So yes, so on a smaller development, on a few house development, then you might not want to get a three-phase supply into the development because of the costs associated with it, especially on the even small developments, single houses, the likes. So what we're trying to do is to ensure that the 230 volt is we have to make sure it cannot actually be. If it can't actually be achieved, then we will advise the client at an early stage. But we typically always go with a 240 volt for a smaller development for that particular reason. Yeah.
Fantastic, and that's all for this episode. Tune in for the next one.
Thank you.